Oh,
Okay. I'm Emily.
I'm Kim.
I'm Hannah.
I'm Thessaly.
and I'm Jenny.
Perfect. I'll get us started unless anyone else wants a turn reading off questions and stuff.
Oh,
I
thank
don't
you.
mind. Yeah. Okay, what were your impressions of the CRC article and video by the United Nations, and what about the article and videos by parental rights? Let's do the CRC article first. I'll start. I thought it was kind of cool at first before I got more information, because I know there's a lot more serious issues, or there are a lot more in other countries that we're not even aware of, and it's a good baseline to start from. At least I thought so at first.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. It on the surface, it all sounds so idealistic. Like, isn't that really what our aim is? What we'd really like to have? But it's like anything, you got to read the fine print. And in the fine print, there's things that are alarming and we're not aware of unless we read it. And once we do, then we're kind of like, oh, let me step back for a minute and rethink this. I think it's the same here.
Yeah.
Like a wolf in sheep's clothing, kind of.
Yeah.
Or just something that got corrupted.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to look at it.
And I think that the intentions were good initially, but again, culturally, it doesn't work for every culture. It's interesting how we're kind of placing certain values that certain people have at the UN upon everyone. And also, to have it kind of a globalized type thing is really quite difficult, because there are different interpretations and stuff. Like the one lady was saying that she had to go and explain some of the terminology to some of the other, delegates or whatever that were there, because in English, those words don't necessarily translate into their language so that they have the same understanding of the meaning that we do. And so I think sometimes I don't think it's very sensitive for them to kind of proceed that way without everybody having the correct interpretation.
Agreed.
I agree.
Okay, what are our impressions about the article and videos by parental rights? I liked the article by parental rights that said things you need to know. I felt like it came across really well because it just gave us more information. And I was shocked by the part where it said children can demand leisure time. Like, if I was a kid, I would demand that all the time.
Yeah.
But
I am not telling my kids.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting what they kind of felt that the children needed to have as far as rights. And it kind of goes well beyond just some of your basics and stuff. And I mean, it's almost like the children are going to rule the nest, and we are going to be subservient to our children and their desires and their pursuits and their wants. And what a bunch of spoiled we have. It just kind of throws you off kilter, because there are those children, like when I had foster children, they know the laws and the regulations, and they'll work that system. And I can't imagine, our kids working us in order to achieve, what their desires are for the moment, especially as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think something that came to mind as you were talking and as I was reading it is initially it sounds like a good thing to teach kids to be agents unto themselves, and that's a gospel principle, but we also have to remember the importance of obeying your parents and obeying commandments and not being slothful, um, not taking something good too far. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense, but I think it's just another example of how something good can be twisted and altered and changed to where it's unrecognizable from the initial intent of what was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense a lot.
Let's go ahead and move on to the next one unless anyone else had anything.
Well, just one more thing, the proclamation. I always like to go to that. I just love the proclamation. But I was seeing what they address the children, and it says children are entitled, and I'm like, yeah. What are they entitled to? And it's just birth within the bonds of matrimony, and to be reared by a father and mother who honor their marital vows and fidelity. So it didn't say about leisure time. No, we
Good
corrupt.
point.
Okay, we can go ahead.
Hang on, I'm writing notes. Okay, if you are from or have ever lived in a country where the CRC has already been ratified, what are some of the before I read the rest, has anyone?
No.
Me neither.
What?
Lived
Has
in a
anyone
country
lived-
where CRC's been ratified.
No.
Well, I lived in Germany, but I think it was before this time, so no.
Okay. And then if we are from the U.S., where the CRC has not yet been ratified, then research another country to document the positive and negative effects and relate how they could benefit or hurt your country with a future CRC ratification. I'm a little confused on that one.
Yeah, I didn't look up anything myself, so.
I didn't read that question all the way through before.
We can look up right now a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
We already kind of discussed it
Go
a little
ahead.
bit when we first started our discussion about how something good can be taken too far. And I think those are the effects we'll find.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's true.
That's just a guess, but a logical guess.
Well, kind of like what Kim was talking about, what we think, just with any country, if I would have picked a country and researched it, I just think that there's common things, like prostitution. Don't do that. Don't sell your kids into prostitution. And there's just some things that you just don't do. But like Kim said, some cultures maybe just normal. So yeah, it's hard for me to say how can they not know this or this.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's hard to keep an open mind like that.
Yeah. And, I thought it was interesting in one of the videos it was talking about how she went to, I guess it was kind of like a council of these, 23 representatives that were basically telling the countries, what they were doing wrong and penalizing them. And so now we have countries that are living in fear. I'm going to lose funding. I'm going to lose money for my country if I don't now comply and do what you will. And this just goes to this whole kind of a globalization of, of all the countries, and I just don't see how it can work because we just have different ways of thinking and beliefs and importance on different aspects. Some countries, religion is such a big part of it, and now we're trying to take out the religion part and some of the things that they hold sacred and saying, okay, well, here's the dangling dollar, and if you want this, then you got to give up that. I
Yeah.
don't know that that's really. I think they're going to find that there's conflict in that.
Maybe a possible positive effect that it could have on the U.S. is that it can emphasize how important the raising of children is on a broader scale, because I know there's a lot of, for example, in my community, I did some volunteer work for a class a couple semesters ago at an after-school program, and a lot of these children didn't, they were from minority cultures, and they seemed to not have a lot of family interaction. And I think any kind of emphasis, even if this is too broad, might be good for the general U.S.
But
I know
could you
that's kind of
imagine,
rude.
like, oh, sorry, was somebody else speaking?
No, you're good.
Oh, I mean, but can you imagine, when they're saying, well, you as a parent didn't give your child this privilege or that privilege, so now we're going to put them into a foster home or whatever. I mean, can you imagine the foster home system? I mean, first of all, having worked in that is a little messed up as it is and overwhelmed. And then can you imagine what will happen? I mean, we're just going to have these huge state government agencies that are raising our children, that take them away and say we can do this better than you, and so therefore now we're put them in some type of military encampment is my vision. And stuff where they're indoctrinating our children in what they shouldn't do, which isn't necessarily go along with our values and our morals and things that we wish to project on our children.
Mm-hmm.
It almost gives it, what's that book we all read in high school, that the tribe of boys on the island?
Oh, is that Lord of the Flies? Is that different?
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's almost as if we're giving the children that kind of power. And if we take the example of Lord of the Flies, where it turned very brutally, I'm having a hard time with words today, primitive, there's the word I'm looking for, then applied broadly across the U.S., where the children can all have the power to do what they want, like in that situation, it could get pretty nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think kids know what to do with all that power.
I agree. I think they know that.
They don't know how to
Yeah.
handle. They don't know how to handle it.
You may
No,
think.
not appropriately.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They think they do. That's the thing.
Yes.
They think they do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's adults that don't even know how.
Look, I mean, take it when you were a teenager. I mean, for you guys, it wasn't that long ago. For me, it's been a while. But, I mean, you thought you were smarter than your parents. You thought you could do things differently, that, you could do things on your own. And, I went away to college. Well, I'm right back where I was because I came to Rick's. And I remember then calling home and saying, Mom, how do you make this? As far as like cooking, or, how do you do this about finances or whatever. I mean, we still need them, but yet we feel like we don't need them. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
if we give them so much freedom that they kind of disqualify us, so to speak, I mean, what's the recourse? Are they going to come back? I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, I don't know. We don't want our children dependent on the government. We want them to be individuals and.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the next one?
Sure.
Well, how did Kelly's presentation help your understanding of the ecological approach to family advocacy?
That was just right in the beginning, wasn't it?
Go ahead.
I think Cecily was going to say something. Sorry.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I was just thinking.
Well, wasn't it just that little short blurb in the beginning that she kind of stated what they were and
I think so.
just the different groups that were involved in it? So I don't know. I mean, she just kind of laid out what groups where family would fit and politics would fit and all that in which category.
I like how she used the ecological. I mean, she didn't say she was doing it, but when she looked at the different examples, for
Yes.
example, the school fence, she took into account the school, the PTA, the police. She said something else, but even just being able to remember all the different facets of the ecological system
Mm-hmm.
in trying to solve a problem can be beneficial.
Absolutely. She asked herself the motivation, the obstacle, outcome, and what did she learn from it. I thought that was really great.
I liked that, especially if I missed a little part of it. She kind of went over it, and so I kind of restated it.
Yep.
She did that.
And I like that she took into consideration, like when she was at the beginning, when she was sharing her experiences in funding and building the fence is the one that keeps coming back to mind. But I like that she took into consideration everyone's, like how this would affect everyone, not just her and her family. It affected all the neighborhoods and all the kids in the community, and it affected the school. And she took the very valid opinions and fears and concerns of the school faculty and the community. Like, does that make sense? She covered all her bases and tried to make a solution that benefited everyone rather than just a self-serving thing or benefited just a small group.
Yeah.
That's true.
And I think when in any ecology of anything, like it's a system that needs to benefit everyone for it to survive.
Yes.
That's going back to like biology class, but
Yeah. It's all interrelated.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that with this CRC whether it takes into account everyone. In this particular thing, their focus is on the child, and it's not encompassing then the family and the home, and then what goes beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that in one respect that it is focused only on one of those ecological systems.
That's a good point.
No matter how good that one thing you focus on is, like you can put, it's all about finding that balance that benefits everyone and allows it to survive.
Yes. Okay. Well said.
Yeah. Okay, what system or level do you personally feel would be the most difficult to advocate, and why?
I guess it would be the chrono or the macro, just because it's so large. I guess you can in any of them, but I think to me it would be easier to work in something local and close to home.
I agree. Especially since you're, like, for me, I'm closer with those people than, I'm not as close with the community or, like, people that are more broad, I guess. It'd be easier with people that are more in my circles, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a different thought on this, and it's kind of, it answers both questions. So it's most important, but also I found it to be most difficult to advocate in your microsystem, to try and change somebody or help them see the light of something that's super important to you can be so hard because you know them so well that you don't want to offend them or step on any toes or do anything that could potentially hurt your relationship. So you back, or at least maybe this is just me, I back off when I find super strong resistance to something I'm passionate about with people that are really close to me, just because I'm like, well, I guess this isn't as important to them as I thought it might be or as it is to me, and I'd rather maintain a relationship than well, which is bad because you're supposed to stand firm in spite of persecution, but I'm clearly needing to work on that. But yeah, so I've just found for me it's most important to help them, the people in your microsystem, understand the importance.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, I found most difficult because you know them so well and so personally, and everything you do and say affects them so profoundly, rather than like the chrono system where everything you do and say maybe inspires other people to grow and change and get on board with whatever you're passionate about or advocating. But that's just my thought that I've been pondering about all week, and so I'm just like, well, maybe I should say that. So
I think that's a great point. Like, it pulls into account your own self-consciousness. And when you're really good friends with someone and you see any resistance, it can be much easier, especially if you're confrontation, like myself, then it's much easier just to back off and let it go.
Yeah.
Jenny, you had something?
No. Oh, sorry. I was probably moving. No, I think that's really profound that you thought about that this week, and I think sometimes your actions could just speak louder than words. You know, you just love them, and how you live your life will be the example and your words, so that you can maintain a social relationship with them. You know.
So as Thessaly was talking, I was thinking, okay, you know the assignment that we just did, that persuasive writing paper that we turned in. So I was thinking, okay, you know, that's, if we turn it into the UFI or whatever, it's going to a broad audience. So I'm thinking, now if I took that, would I take that same position and would I say what I said in that paper and be able to do it to a friend or somebody who's close to me? So that was a thought that came to my mind when you were saying that, Cecily. Would I be able to say that to somebody I visually see and know, and not just to a broad audience that I don't know? I think in my case, mine was on sex education in the schools, and I think that yes, I can do that because I have done that. But I think for some topics it might be a little bit more difficult to be able to do that.
Yeah, but it's important that, like Jenny said, that we live it, that we are examples of it in every action, just because it is so important.
I agree.
I'm sorry, I have a doctor's appointment, so this isn't to do with it, but I have to go. I have a doctor's appointment in like 20 minutes, so.
No problem.
Okay, sorry, I have to go short.
We'll be finishing up soon, so.
What else do we still have left?
That was.
Diana.
What's most
summarizing.
That's
okay.
Sorry.
What's most important and what's most difficult. So basically.
Yeah. That was it then.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I did not note or anything, so I don't think I'd be good at the summary today. Sorry.
Okay, I can do it. Okay, ready?
Thanks.
Summary. The impressions of our impressions on the CRC video was that it was great at first, but we need to read the fine print, and it was almost as if it was a wolf in sheep clothing. It started out great, but the vocabulary or even the concepts might not translate globally or cross-culturally or different perspective-wise, and it didn't seem like they took that into account. Our impressions of the parental rights videos was that we liked the info that was educational and not necessarily biased. It was almost like adults will become subservient to children with the information they pointed out. Foster kids can work the system, and translating that onto a larger scale could be scary. Teaching kids to be agents unto themselves is a good benefit that we could draw from the CRC. In the proclamation, children are entitled to married parents that are, what's the word for it, chaste, but and then possible impacts that it could have on the U.S. is that it gives us a good baseline for any drastic threats. It is a global and broad perspective that shouldn't be applied so broadly to a country that has so many cultures. And the emphasis is on children, so anything that emphasizes is something that doesn't have any emphasis to begin with could be a good benefit. The foster system is already so complicated. If we took the example of the Lord of the Flies, giving children that kind of power can be nasty, and children don't know how to handle that kind of power, and it gives them the freedom to disqualify their parents. Looking at Kelly's ecological perspective, she used each facet to solve a problem, covered all her bases for a good compromise rather than just looking to serve her own mission, and emphasized that it was interrelated. And then we had the good point where the CRC does not use each ecological system perspective. It only looks at the children, and we need to be balanced to survive in our system. And then which system is difficult to advocate, and we said macro because it's hard to understand each other's cultures, but then we also said micro because it can be difficult to talk to people that we're familiar with, that we have relationships with, and if there's any resistance, we can have self-consciousness or fear the confrontation, and we'd rather emphasize the importance or emphasize the maintain the relationship. And then most important to advocate also the micro because they're people that are close to us, and we can be examples to them if we, as a different approach to being advocates. The end.
Great summary. Wow.
Thank
All right.
you.
Do we go off the air?
Yeah, I'll stop the live part.